There was one thing about the Charles, Diana, Camilla triangle that made it really, really strange, really unexpected, okay? Um, as Diana so cleverly put it, there were three in that marriage, so it was a bit crowded. That was a very good way of putting it. But the thing about it is, we expect the wife to be older and plain looking by comparison with the mistress. We expect the mistress to be young and glamorous. Maybe even a bit, how do I say this? Oh, there's no nice way to say it. Maybe a bit stupid, a bit silly, a bit giggly. But we expect the mistress to be kind of like the dumb blonde, the floozy, the beautiful floozy, the beautiful harlot. And it was just so odd to see Charles cheating on beautiful, glamorous Diana. Young, beautiful, glamorous, young Diana with plain, dowdy, older Camilla. It stood the whole thing, the whole all the expectations were stood on their head by that triangle. Okay? At the same time, though, it simply is true that Diana was kind of selected for Charles by people in the people who kind of were his handlers, so to speak, people who around him. She was aristocratic, young, pretty, a virgin, and she could do the job of producing the heir and the spare. She did that. Okay. But she wasn't really a good fit with Charles because there's really, and also, at least at first, there was sexual chemistry between them. There had to be to some extent for him to get her pregnant. And everybody can remember that they did, in fact, look good together in some of the early photos. And there was a famous photo taken when I know that photographer really congratulated himself or herself because he had his hand on her butt. Okay, that was a very famous, and that was early in their marriage. Prince Charles has his hand on Princess Di's butt. So that shows that they were getting it on. But see, the thing about that is they just didn't have interests in common. Um, whereas what he did with Camilla. They just were more compatible as far as having common interests. And in addition, the fact that she was so very pretty and also was kind of the people's princess meant that he was kind of envious of her um, without really meaning to. She kind of automatically kind of outshone him. And of course, he didn't like that. He was used to always being the center of attention. One time he said in a kind of, self deprecating manner, when the photographers were around him, sorry, it's just me, because they actually did want to see Princess Diana. And now she did, in fact, like for example, she was close to as tall as he was, so she wore basically flat shoes so she wouldn't, if she wore high heels, she would look like she was taller. And she would, she didn't want to look like she was taller, so in fact, she tried not to outshine him, but she automatically did. Um, Camilla doesn't outshine him because, she's not, her deficits means that, not being particularly pretty and being, not being young and radiant means that she's not going to, have hog the spotlight, so to speak. And she's just a much better fit for him because of the similar interests. And the feeling of intimacy is there in a way that apparently it never was with